5:32. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Water Sewer Commissioners, Tuesday, June 14th. I've asked everyone to rise and pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, good to see everybody. We apologize to people out there that can't dial in. Just having a few problems with our network. We'll hopefully get that repaired before next meeting. But let's see, we have some minutes to approve.
We do. You guys look at these, you're good with these? Any questions? Okay, I would like to move that we approve the meeting minutes of the May 31st, 2022 Norton Board of Water Sewer Commissioners meeting.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That the only one we got?
That's the only minutes I have, yeah.
Okay, good. All right, Frank, let's get into it.
Thank you very much. I'm going to see if I can keep this short and sweet. I'm going to start off with the spring flushing program. You guys have noticed we've been updating the map slowly as we move along. We actually called off the flushing program due to the early drought and the impacts that we were seeing with our run times at the treatment facility and the wells, all hinged on the drought. We finished close to 85% of the town, focusing on areas that were left out in previous programs. Did some major changes to the approved flushing program, which were required to get water to certain areas of town based on a certain sequence. By actually activating different sequences from what had normally done in the past, we actually found 2 closed valves. It did impact the town. There were 2 instances where the town had extremely low pressure, if not no pressure. It was remedied as quickly as possible.
Yeah, it wasn't off.
Yeah.
10 minutes if that.
Yeah. Those areas have been noted and will be investigated a little bit further. Basically, when we have the water to mess around with, so it may actually be in the fall flushing program. The valves that we think are partially closed or could be backwards. Obviously, this is an older section of town. We have a valve exercising machine that we are going to put out there, but we don't want to create any impacts to the system if we did find a valve that's been closed for many years, or if we found one that's partially closed and have changes in flow now that the system has calmed down. So we'll hit that when we have the manpower and the operational procedures in place to isolate and focus on that one area. So that may actually put the town out of water again while we determine if the valve is in one position or another, but it would obviously be for a very short duration of time.
Temporary, we notify anyways, like we've been doing.
Exactly. So,
Would we do that at night too?
most likely it'll be a nighttime thing. Just with traffic,
Yeah.
and impacts, we want to try and keep both of them as minimal as possible. But typically, this is how we find some of our closed valves, and especially in our older systems, that they're done a certain way because it's indicated to be done that way in the plans. Something changes, you can't get a cover off, we got wedged in, it's frozen in over winter. So you stumble across these things, even though you plan one thing, you kind of get directed down a different path.
Sure.
So each time we found an issue in the past with a partially closed valve or a closed valve, it has been during the flushing program. Going out and checking system pressures when everything is in a normal state, you're not going to notice any differences unless you have a flow. So there's reasons why we find them at certain times, and unfortunately it is something that customers are impacted with.
Do you, when you do the flushing program, do you hand turn them down or do you use a machine?
We hand turn them.
Yeah.
If we had an area that we were concerned about, let's say, for example, East Main Street, where we know there's going to be heavy construction going on, we'd be out there with the valve machine, making sure that the valve operates fully in its open and closed position. That way when we do respond, typically we're not pulling up with that trailer unit. It's large and cumbersome. We can respond, throw a regular gate wrench in, basically operate the valve manually without any impacts, hopefully, to the person doing it. And I laughingly say that because I told my road kid a cuff about 11 years ago, responding to an emergency to turn a valve on a 16-inch main. When it let go, so did I.
Say that valve turning machine is revolutionized the water business.
Mhm.
It really has.
Yep, it definitely has. So we halted that on actually Thursday, June 9th is when that was called off. We transitioned to some light flushing during the day, mainly because during this program, because we had so many operational changes, we had the crews actually moving to different areas, even if the road wasn't completely finished from end to end. So we used, as I mentioned before, some of our flow tests, whether it be a fire pump or a sprinkler or a hydrant flow test, to agitate those areas of town, and then we would actually use that as a start point and move out from there. So the water would be flushed up to that point, that's seen the high velocity flush, and we would continue that out as far as we could, either to another hydrant or to another valve where we isolated the system afterwards.
Are we getting any customer complaints at all from any of this?
We have had, I think, 4 or 5 calls throughout the entire flushing program.
Wow, that's great.
Unfortunately, I can't say yes or no that it was directly related to that, because we did have some fires during the program. Luckily, major, it didn't require a ton of water to be put down, but it was enough to clear those areas that we hadn't got to yet. So we're going to take the blame and say it was because of the flushing program, and we went out afterwards to rectify the problem, but there's always potential that it could have been caused by something other than, what we were doing out there. We did have a large fire pump test that was performed on Leonard Street, which did stir up one portion of Burt Street, the next road over. The pump actually had to be done twice, so they had a problem with their operational circuit. The pump spooled up, failed, and they actually had to go back after making repairs. So that short duration change of flow is what got everything moving, and then not having anywhere to displace the water afterwards is what caused the disruption when everything was kind of shaking around.
That makes sense.
So the guys went out, they flushed the areas of Burt Street that were affected. No other calls came in. The very next time when they went out and did that high velocity flow, there was a small slug of dirty water because it was stuck in that lateral, and it was gone, and never received a call after that.
Perfect. That's great news.
We get very lucky being able to use those type of flows that we could never achieve if we wanted to from a hydrant.
Right.
We're talking, 3,000 to 4,000 gallons a minute when those pumps are running, something that's just not obtainable without having another type of a booster behind it. So we're going to continue to use those. We have actually quite a few tests set up June alone, ranging from the small sprinkler test, which is a 2-inch line, all the way up to another fire pump test. That's going to be done. Is this Thursday? Yes, Thursday.
Where?
We are going to be at Autopots International on Mansfield Ave. That's down there, the McDonald's, Roche Brothers Plaza,
Okay.
large building out back.
Oh, with the tank is.
Where our 3 million gallon tank is, yeah, which I'm sure, unfortunately, nobody else really knows where it is, but that is another one of the larger pumps in town. We don't anticipate any disruptions from it, but obviously we're going to have staff available to take care of that if something does get shaken up. Mentioned those light flushing areas that we've been doing some daytime work. We actually were up on East Main Street at 283, 285, 274 East Main has been all done. Red Mill Village will be this week. I believe signs were put out. Unfortunately, our signs have been disappearing. So we have rather inexpensive signs, just step-in post signs that we put out.
Disappearing, like people are stealing them?
Yeah, unfortunately. It happens every year. We buy another stack of them, and they end up in the trees or in the woods or.
I'm sure what the motive that would be.
I'm sure the one at Red Mill Village will be there when
Those will probably remain.
Yeah, those will be
If we
okay.
put them in an
It's a
area
tough area.
that's not populated, those are the ones that typically disappear. Or if we put out some of our larger signs, we have some sawhorse signs that were made up. It was always fun to find those blocking off a road, and then we get a call, why you got the road blocked?
So it's just probably kids or something?
It's got to be kids or somebody just messing around. So we've learned to chain those to some of the stop signs where we can, stuff like that.
Yep.
Chain them to trees. Just takes a little bit more time and takes away from the actual flushing program. So we do our best with that, and weather permitting, we're going to see if we can keep knocking off some of these small side roads. Everything is going to hinge on the rain, even though we got 2 or 3 inches of rain. In the past week, it's really not enough to change the situation that we're in as far as the drought goes already in this section. So any areas that aren't hit this spring by the flushing program will be monitored and addressed. If there are quality issues, we will go down, isolate, and flush those out. If not, we're gonna wait till the fall, and those will be on the first target list once we get the main trunk lines done. So we'll have kind of a staggered sequence until we can actually perform a full flushing program, which unfortunately hasn't been able to be completed in quite a few years for a multitude of reasons, water being the biggest one. So now with temporary well 5A on and the future moving towards 6A and 5A becoming permanent, obviously there'll be some major changes with water availability.
Yeah.
And give us a lot more options.
So we've been running one all along?
One has been on between 4 to 6 hours a day to meet demand, including
That's
the flushing program and just operational.
That's great.
It's not a full run, as
Yep.
we've tried to stay away from that. We are also monitoring well 3, which is also unfiltered. And knock on wood, we've been very lucky with the PFAS numbers there remaining below the 20. We're in the teens, where we've been all along. We're at 14.1. And doing our own trends in-house, it appears that that portion of the aquifer relates with a flood condition when you see the elevated numbers for the PFAS.
Yep.
We've talked to a few other operators around, and that seems to be the consensus. It's not gospel, but it definitely does seem that, at least for our situation over there, the lower number is definitely better when we're in a drought condition. So hopefully that is gonna hold true, and we can, keep a little bit more data on that.
Good.
It'll give us some ideas of how and when to run that well. Typically, the ways you would have seen it before, in the old days when you'd have areas that you're concerned about flood, you wouldn't use those wells.
Yeah.
So we'll keep compiling data on that and just see where we go. Let's stay with the water. White Street, Western and Sampson was here today for the bid opening for the White Street water main replacement project. Actually went pretty good. Total of 5 bidders, and the range was...
It's close, huh?
It was very close, yeah, 319,000 up to 405,000. So the engineers still have to verify the information that was provided in all of the bid documents. As of right now, it appears a company we've used in the past, Gravity Construction, would be the lowest, coming in at 319,863.06. Again, those numbers have to be verified before an award can be given. And I'm not sure how long that takes, but I'm sure it'll be a few days at least.
Yeah, we just want to check all the insurance and all that, make sure they got everything in. Well, it's actually just their bond.
Where did we use them before?
We use them on Reservoir Street
Oh, that's
and
okay.
on Holmes at East Main Street.
Right, I knew the name, I just couldn't remember.
Yeah, all of the bidders were actually very familiar to us, which is good to see.
Yeah.
And even in the volatile markets, to see 5 bidders come in relatively close, it's not a bad thing.
And the numbers were checked, just as a finance director.
Very nice.
The what?
The numbers.
The total tally of the 2 low bidders, they were within $160 of each other.
Yeah, I actually got a text.
So then they're official.
Yeah, very, very tight, especially on the 2
That's good,
lowest.
they sharpen their pencils and, this makes it competitive and,
Most definitely. I'm gonna jump over to sampling, staying with the water. Lead and copper bottles were distributed to the homes that meet the list of criteria for Mass DEP. Unfortunately, it's common that we don't see a very good turnaround on the sample bottles. We are running into a situation now where we have already made some phone calls. We'll be dropping letters off to remind residents to please get the bottles back to us, and all of that.
Do you ask the residents first, or just drop it off and?
Typically, letters are sent out to remind them
Yeah.
that they've volunteered in the past to do this program. Because we have decent rapport with these people, we haven't
Sure.
been sending
Yeah.
letters out. A few of the homes have changed ownership, so that is one of the reasons for delay. We did make some phone calls, we did get some responses back. They've been instructed to read through the instructions that are in there, fill the bottles out, take the sample according to the requirements, and hopefully put them back out so that we can meet our quota. If we don't get the same amount of sample bottles back that we distribute and we don't meet the quota, we actually have to report an NON to Mass DEP for non-compliance. These are one of the samples that we don't have control over. It's a homeowner sample, and basically the reason and the indications of how they're supposed to take the sample will indicate the water in their residence. It has nothing to do with the distribution system or our plumbing. It's basically the plumbing inside the home that Mass DEP is looking for the numbers on. And it's based on criteria when the house was built, what type of plumbing was used, and a multitude of different factors.
Typically, it's like between 1983 and 85 or something like that, 82, 85, something like that.
And
How do we get the bottles back from them? Do they bring them to us?
No,
Do we have to go?
we physically drop them off, and we physically pick them up and bring them.
So
to
they
the
just
lab.
leave them out on the porch or something
Yep.
generally?
Yep. Yeah, we recommend, if at all possible, wherever we left the bottle, that they return it there.
Same spot, yeah.
So that obviously when the same person, or if the same person doesn't go back out to retrieve it, it's in a similar, easy to find location for us. Knock on wood, in years past, we have not ever had a non-compliance for lack of participation.
Now, if you
Don't wanna
can't-
start that,
If you can't get, you're doing 60 or 30?
we're doing 60.
So if you can't get this, the 60, can you open it up and do a neighbor or something like that? To do another tier?
No.
They don't allow you?
We have our 60 primary, and
Yeah.
then we have our additional secondary sites.
Right.
If we can't get the 60 sites, then we can go to our alternates. But we want to verify that we're not going to get the bottle back from our 60 sites that were distributed, because any bottle that goes out and is given back to us has to be part of the sample. And it's been recommended to stay as close as possible to the 60 number, because it affects what's called your 90th percentile.
Yep.
And if you distribute 70 bottles, it's going to screw your numbers from what it
Right.
was the previous years.
And schools don't figure in that tally.
Yes.
Schools,
No,
when they
those
do
are
school
separate.
sampling
Oh,
and-
okay.
or daycares, they don't figure in that 90th percentile.
So we've had multiple conversations with DEP about what happens if we can't get bottles back, or what if, we don't meet that magic number.
Are there any municipal town buildings that we send these bottles to, or is it just all homes?
They don't meet the criteria. It's all homes.
It's all homes, okay.
So yeah, DEP has told us basically to try and entice the public by offering them some type of benefit, whether it be a gift card to a pizza place or something, all stuff that we can't do as a municipality. You
Yeah,
can't
that's-
bribe the people.
I know.
But they don't,
That doesn't sound right.
yeah, I don't know, they're not putting two and two together. So again, hopefully, knock on wood, we maintain our compliance with
Yeah,
getting all the samples back, and that will take care of one of the problems we have with sampling here in town. Another one, staying on the samples, is TTHM and HAA5s. These are quarterly samples that we take. You may remember back in November of 2021, we had an exceedance at the Richardson Ave dead end. It appears from the last round of samples that were taken that that same location may have exceeded again by 1 part per billion. Which automatically triggers the public notice, as it did in the past. We have to do evaluation forms based on changes in the system that may have impacted it. We have to look at operational changes in the distribution system, which we've always been doing all along. Part of it is actually we've been taking additional water samples when the water treatment facility went online to prove what DEP is looking for is called optimum water quality. It's an analysis of the whole system. And our argument all along has been that we've been forced to run at a pH that is
right.
not really where we should be based on our system dynamics. And we say that based on information that we've gotten from years of experience working with other operators and from the training classes that we go to, where they actually make an example that you don't run a system with iron and manganese at a pH of 8, which is exactly where DEP has us running it. So we've
Yeah, we want to be back closer to 7.
anywhere away from 8
Yeah.
would make things a little bit better for everything else that we do. Running at a pH of 8 requires additional chlorine to be added to
Right.
maintain the same distribution residual that you see. Adding additional chlorine gives you the opportunity to add pHM problems to your system.
Yeah.
So they could be exactly hand in hand, or there could be something totally separate going on. But until we solve one problem that we've dealt with in the past with iron and manganese and pH, we can't
move forward without major changes, so.
Is that pH of 8 a state Massachusetts
No,
thing?
no, this is based on a
Each
study
system.
that was done, I believe, back in the 80s for Norton, for water
So
quality.
each town has its own study and what they have to go by.
You know, so unfortunately, there was issues that had happened with lead and copper that weren't reflective of the distribution system many years ago. And Norton was looked at, and the best thing that DEP could come up with is that we weren't running within their parameter that they told us to at the time. We were running at a lower pH because it had improved water quality. This was done by previous operators many years ago. And the only thing that they could come up with at DEP was to force us to go back to the required level, which was from the 80s. I don't remember the exact time frame, but it was that long ago.
So we can't revisit that with the treatment plant up and running now? We can't?
We're in the process of
eventually,
doing that.
Okay.
So we went to, Tara's holding up a paper.
I got a contract.
We went to.
Yes, we're doing it.
Yeah, we went to Mass DEP, we requested that they listen to us and explain the situation. Basically, they didn't feel that we've given them enough information and more or less denied our request at the time. Moving forward to where we are now, there's a different group of people overseeing the projects. They've requested that we do these water quality analyses throughout town and have our engineers draft up a report, submit that report to them for review with our recommendations along with the engineers' recommendations, and then they'll look at the possibility of making changes. There's nothing in writing, nothing a guarantee, but we have old data that's been provided before the treatment plant was online, showing what the problems were. We have data from the date that we were required to change the pH to 8, when the calls started coming in for black water, you know, the hours that we spent flushing, the millions of gallons wasted.
Yeah.
All of this will be in that report, and hopefully, you know, we'll get something from it.
So the wheels are in motion and the wheels will turn at the pace that government wheels typically turn at?
Exactly.
Understood.
There's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes. Everything we do is regulated by Mass DEP
Yeah.
and the EPA. They're obviously their lead people there. So we don't have the options to make changes here without first seeing approvals from them. So there's a process. Unfortunately, it takes time, and the way that the THMs are figured with the long-running annual average, the possibility to exceed again at that location with a similar number, 1 part or 2 parts per billion above, is very real. As you get into the warmer months, the water is harder to keep disinfected, so you typically increase your chlorine disinfection amounts in the summertime, and as the heat comes up, you create THMs and water sits in tanks a little bit longer, so
So that's a dead end water line?
that is a dead end
Is
water.
there any way to make it an un-dead end?
Not unless we can go through Attleboro.
Okay.
That is one of the worst ones in town, other than Dean Street, which dead ends at Rehoboth. So there is no possibility
They
of
don't
making a
allow a
loop
drain,
there.
they don't allow a bleeder.
And no blow off?
No, they don't
No,
allow
they
bleeder.
won't allow
They don't allow
waste.
them anymore.
And this is Richardson Ave,
This is Richardson Ave, yep.
further out obviously than like Spruce Tree Lane,
Like you're going towards
Yeah, all the way-
Attleboro,
all the way
near
at
the
the
near
end,
the
almost
power
at the
lines.
line, so there's really nowhere to go with that.
No.
Dead end.
Yeah.
Their-
In the
their
old days, we
solution-
used to put bleeders in, but
Yep.
you're saying that's not.
They don't
We-
allow bleeders any longer. What they want us to do is physically go out there and flush, monitor the gallons that are flushed, and put that on our unaccounted for water, which is what we have been doing in the past. Whether additional flushing is going to benefit or make it worse is yet to be seen. But we will continue doing what they recommend that we do, and we'll do the public notice as required, and just keep moving forward with that. Tara has,
And that's the only spot where we seem to,
we've seen levels increase all throughout town. And oddly enough, and this is very difficult to say and difficult to explain, but as the water gets cleaner, we're gonna have more issues with byproducts from chlorination. So years past, where we didn't have a water treatment facility removing iron and manganese, we'd put in, just for an example, we'd put in 1 part of chlorine. And we'd see a minimal, barely a tinge at the furthest out point in town, which is all DEP requires, is to have a measurable amount or a visible amount of chlorine in your system at your furthest point away from your treatment facility or your wells, the way it was back then. Adding the same amount based on our 4 log requirements, which is the number we have to stay at in order to maintain a minimum amount at our first tap and our furthest. When you take away what eats the chlorine in the distribution system, which would be the iron and manganese, you have more free chlorine.
Yep.
So it has longer time to stay in contact with the water while it gets from A to B. The more chlorine that stays alive in the system, the more potential you have to create byproducts of chlorine, which is what you have.
Yep.
So in the short of it, as the water gets cleaner in the system, you could see these levels come up, which is the exact reason why we shouldn't be at the same chemical dose as we
Yeah.
were before the plant went online, which is the reason for the water quality analysis that we're submitting to DEP with our recommendations to allow us to alter our levels. Just a vicious circle.
Yeah.
Yep.
So again, we don't want to, even if we get the approval and they say knock it from one part down to 50, we wouldn't go to 50. We would drop it down probably to 90 or 85, see how the system reacts.
Yep.
You don't want to do major changes because you don't want to deal with the other part, which is even worse, which is bacteria issues. So disinfection is extremely important, but obviously you still run the possibility of having issues with triggers on THMs and HAAs and all the other acronyms. I mean, I don't have to explain this to you. You know, you and I have done this almost the same amount of time, but the general public doesn't understand what goes in behind, you know, I mean, Mr. Bernstein, same thing, he's well aware of what goes on with the system, and you yourself with the air quality. You know, one part per billion, you can't see it, you can't measure it, but it's enough to register and obviously trigger a violation, so.
Unfortunately, somewhere there has to be a number, you know?
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, so, let's see, that covered quite a few things jumping around. We'll go to the elevated water tower, the center tank, which is 63 West Main. We actually have two different carriers that are gonna be performing work there in the next few months. One is actually gonna be removing equipment as they're discontinuing their rental with us. That could take up to a month, so there will be cranes and man lifts and quite a bit of activity there. Typically, we receive calls, which is why I figured I'd mention at a meeting. When they're done, or before they even get there, there's a second company that wants to come in and actually upgrade some of their antennas. So there's gonna be multiple crews there for a long duration of time. And I'm sure it'll generate a few phone calls and a few questions, but that's what's gonna be going on there.
When they take something off, permanently, as you said, do they fix any damage that could be there, or tell it something that may turn into something appropriate? Okay.
Yep, on the back side of the tower, I don't know if you can see it, you could probably see it from the Honeydew parking lot. There's actually a cable chaseway that goes up.
Yeah.
4x4 panels, stainless steel.
That's where all the
conduit
raceways
go.
come?
Yep.
Yeah.
So that is owned by one of these carriers. That is gonna be completely removed. Once their antennas are removed, they're gonna pull their wires. They'd actually asked if we wanted it to remain. Moving forward, not knowing if we're gonna see another person interested in coming in there, chances are, even if we did, they're not gonna wanna rely on somebody else's structure.
I was gonna say, it's been there for old enough, they'd wanna do it anyway.
So we're gonna have them remove it. Behind the box structure is 2x2 strut, which is lagged into the concrete structure. So they're actually gonna grind the bolts flush and epoxy coat each one going up. So it basically will be as if it was never there, but there probably will be some discoloration because it's been shaded from
Yeah.
the weather. So,
That's natural.
but it will be
But structurally, it's
structurally
actually, that's
sound
really
when
what
they
we're
leave.
worried
Yeah.
about.
We asked them to leave the underground conduits, the cable chaseways that are there, cut and cap them.
Yeah, you can use those again.
Just because those can be reused,
Yeah.
those actually go from outside to inside the building so that there's a cable raceway there. No reason for those to be taken out and filled, that would just be foolish, so.
They're just gonna get
They're
it.
pulling out whatever wires they have in there, though, right?
Yeah, they're just gonna cap them, seal them off. And so we've had a lot of correspondence with them, and when they start work, I can let you guys know, we'll probably put a post on the town website, just to make sure people are aware of what's going on and why.
More than 1,000.
I'm gonna jump real quick to, actually it's 6 o'clock. We have, I think we have something set for 6.
196. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Yeah, well, we can jump to that and we can come back.
Okay, very good. Want to have a seat? Yep. Just introduce yourself if you don't mind. Yep.
Jim Marsh. I represent the owners of 196 Mansfield Ave, which is the trust.
See you again.
The common trust. Good to see you. We're back here to report that the trust did put an offer in on 2 Ridge Road. There's a closing scheduled for the 22nd of this month. This is a copy of the sign off for purchase. This would be the location, to be determined location, that we would transfer the 11,450 gallons per day to. This is gonna be a temporary location.
Okay, so there's already capacity at this,
There is sewer tied
Yeah.
in.
Okay.
This is just a placeholder essentially for
yep.
the client to then sell it to a project. As you know, we're under strict timelines with
Yeah,
WISE and trying
yeah,
to close.
understand.
Yeah. So we're looking to see if the commissioner would just approve this location.
Well, like we had mentioned before, if it's, it meets all the criteria, the eligibility, you know, it's certainly, we approve that.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, the only question was if it already has capacity, that's still okay. We can over capacity it, knowing that it's obviously can't be used there.
My understanding, talking to John, is that, there will be a use fee that, for the current use of sewer, and then there would be that additional amount that would be paid,
Right.
because it's just being
And that'll
held
basically just stay there in limbo until
until it's sold. Yeah.
it's
Yep.
transferred to another property to be
Yep.
used.
Yeah,
And
this
fees
is-
are paid by the new owner, right?
Yeah, or current owner.
Current owner.
Yeah,
So-
it would remain in
You're
his
familiar,
ownership.
under
Yeah.
you're pretty familiar,
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, it's very similar to if a project was built out and this person had XYZ for capacity and didn't use it building this project. They filled up all of their buildable space, all the sewer capacity was allocated to those homes or home that was built. Additional capacity would still remain, they would still be required to pay for the unused additional capacity as well as
Basically,
the
what
use,
Mr.
which is
doing for
exactly,
years.
yeah, exactly. This is just a transfer of the sewer capacity to a different address.
Yeah.
Is this
Yeah,
something
no,
we
I'm-
need to vote on? Because we've already voted.
I don't
need a
think you
motion
need to
it.
vote on it, I think the board just needed to
Just
be
to
aware
approve.
that it's
Yep.
gonna be transferred to this location, and if there was any issues with its eligibility, that's what this would have been a chance to discuss.
I don't have any issues. In fact, it's very much of a help for the
Yeah,
For-
solve
for
196
everybody
Mansfield
involved.
Ave. We
Yeah.
pretty
I
much,
think it solves a lot of problems.
Yeah.
I think it does, yeah.
Especially with the sale to Elias. He can move on with this
With the
property.
amount that he wants.
Is this ours or is it yours?
If you need it for the record, you can keep it. If not,
I really don't think we need a
Okay.
record of it.
so the closing for this was the 22nd. When is the closing for 196? 27th.
Yeah.
So it'll happen pretty quickly.
Yep.
Well, you just,
Okay.
Ramblin', these
Giddy up.
you just love stress. Well, that's good. I'm glad everything worked out though. That's
right,
good.
great.
Yeah. We appreciate you coming in. Do you have any other questions for us
I
at
think I'm
all?
all set, yeah.
Okay.
I want to say, both Frank and John, you guys have been really helpful along the way here. Sorry to bug you guys.
No, no.
We appreciate you coming back and forth all the time.
Please call anytime you want, and any questions, just please reach out.
All right, great.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Good
so
luck.
much.
Very good.
Thanks.
Have a
Have a good night.
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Superintendent? Any more stuff?
I got a couple things.
All right.
I'm gonna move quick because Steve's gonna fall asleep on us.
Bring me. I told him earlier I was tired. I went and got a coffee. Me here earlier. I'm fine.
Gotta jump off to vehicles. As you've heard me mention, unfortunately, all too often, the vehicles are just about impossible to get. Because of that, we did increase our repair and maintenance budget for FY '23, which was approved at town meeting. And unfortunately, I have to report that we actually have 2 vehicles down right now.
Oh, jeez. Anything major?
Yeah, unfortunately, one needs a transmission, so that is off at Chevy. Waiting for that to come in. That's gonna be close to $7,500
I was gonna say, this is gonna be cheap.
because they're fully electronic. So we had the option to purchase one from a rebuilder, have it shipped here from Texas, have the truck and the transmission dropped off at the transmission place for installation and programming with an undetermined amount of time,
How old is this truck?
2015.
15?
Never plowed. It was my truck.
Oh, really?
That Chris has now. And Oddly enough, when the transmission let go, he was going to the registry in Springfield to register the brand-new truck that we waited a year for. So talk about irony.
That new truck is nice.
It is nice.
7 years though
We
for
got-
training, that sounds quick.
88,000 miles,
Wow, that's it, jeez.
and the pump let go.
Wow.
No warning, no sign, no nothing. You know, it's towed a landscape trailer maybe 4 or 5 times. You know, doesn't plow, doesn't get beat on. It's one of the best ones in the fleet because it doesn't plow. It's not rotted
Right.
out. It's not just like that.
Yep.
Open your checkbook. The other one is actually the vehicle that we affectionately call the mom car, the one that I also used to drive, oddly enough. That is at the dealer. Had an array of Christmas lights come on the dash and was having issues with actually functionally moving along. Come to find out, the power steering rack, which is integrated into the all-wheel drive system, has a gear that is starting to wear out, causing play, and the computer doesn't like that, on top of having a wheel bearing that's gone, which started the whole process of the Sevilla track and the all-wheel drive not working. So that's gonna be around $3,500 to get that repaired, but the part isn't available from Ford until December.
Oh my gosh.
So we have authorized them to install an aftermarket part, which will come through with the Ford factory warranty.
Oh, they're gonna warranty?
They
Oh,
are gonna
that's
warranty
good.
it because
Wow.
it's municipal, and they know that, you know,
Yeah.
obviously
Okay.
the vehicle shortage and stuff, and unfortunately, we work with them. They're the same ones that fixed the sewer truck for us when we had to do the new motor.
Yep.
But it could be at least a few weeks before we see that part. But that's a relatively simple install.
Well, it's better than December.
It's just waiting on the part. Yeah, I thought he was joking, but he wasn't. So hopefully, those monies will come out of the current FY '22 maintenance budget. That will completely wipe that out, if not go over. But this is the exact reason why I wanted to increase the line item for FY '23.
Yep.
You know, knock on wood, we don't run into any other issues other than tires and brakes, but no one knows.
Okay.
So, yeah, the truck that we ordered last July came in a week or two ago. And that was when Chris was going to the registry to do it. So we got very lucky with that. We were one of the last ones, after speaking to Daimler Chrysler, that was actually still honored to be built and honored to be sold at the bid price. So the MSRP on that truck when it came in was about $10,000 more than what we paid for it. So we got very lucky, and we weren't charged the,
Well, we spent it anyways.
oh, we're spending it, yeah, just not with them. You know, so now vehicles are being sold to municipalities with the MSRP, and there's an additional fee on top of that, between $2,000 and $6,000 for vehicle availability fee. So because the dealer's having difficulty replenishing them, they're taking a hit, so they're passing that along to the customer.
Nice.
So how that's gonna work with us moving
Nice.
forward, when we really do need to replace vehicles, I don't know. You know, we did have monies in the budget for requests to replace vehicles, and we do have some other options available to us, basically finding a vehicle on a lot that may meet our needs, getting a spec, asking them to hold it for 24 hours and rush around to 2 other dealerships and compare. Then that has to be presented to the town manager, who is the procurement officer, for approval. I don't know if that can all be done in a matter of 24 hours. If we can get them to hold it for 48, we got a better shot at that. And then we can outfit a vehicle, you know, that's very close to what we need, even though it wasn't built to meet our specs. So monies were approved at town meeting. Whether we can use them or not in that fashion, you know, time will tell. Other than that, that's exactly what I have for this. I do have some basic other topics to talk about if we have time later, but before we go to Weston and Sampson now.
All right,
Want me to start?
you wanna kick it up?
I will do it.
Wake up time.
Wake up time. I'm getting a bit of rap here, huh?
Oh, air conditioner's broken, sorry.
It's all on film as I fell asleep. I don't think I did. All right, so on the sewer side, update on Holly Road, Norwood generators. We went, actually, last night before the Concom, we submitted an RDA. The generator, I mean, the pump station at Holly Road is right on the bank of the reservoir. So we met out there with the Concom agent, and he worked with us, and he said, yeah, let's go with the RDA process. So it was approved. we don't need an NOI, so we have approval to do the work. And basically, we're not doing any digging, we're just adding an above-grade generator to an existing site. And one of the provisions we did is instead of just pouring a concrete pad and raising it up and losing some of the flood storage, we're building a frame that the water can still get underneath it. So that's basically it. So we can move forward with that. We've got our approvals, so we're finalizing the design, and the intent is still to be ready to go out to bid with that this summer, hopefully in August. Get out to bid, and then we'll see what the timing is to get the generators.
What's the size? You know?
That's a good question. So there's two generators. I think that the Holly Road is like 35. You know what, I shouldn't quote them. I don't remember the numbers because I got so many numbers running around in my head. I don't have that
It's okay.
folder out in the
Draw
car.
30, it's okay.
It's a small, it's definitely a smaller station, and then the, I feel like the one at Knollwood is like a 65
I think so,
kW.
yeah, I think we were
So, and I
looking
think
to
the Holly was like
upsize
20
that.
to 35, somewhere in there.
Yeah, single phase down at Holly, really relatively small, almost like a home-style generator would work there, which would work out good in a small footprint.
Yeah.
Knollwood's a different story.
So also working on helping the town manager and the board of selectmen with the town municipal complex sewer. I've mentioned that
Yep.
before. So since the last time we met, one thing, basically in conjunction with that, that's been pursued is a One Stop for Growth application was submitted for a potential sewer extension on Elm Street to the Reed Barton property and whatnot. And if that were to go forward, that would provide an option for the municipal complex. So the application was submitted. There's also pursuits of some other grant monies that Frank informs me that while I've been out of the office today, an email came out that those might be, there's some movement on that. So we might be seeing some monies for that option, which is something that, I mean, that would be great, something to look at. And it's more about giving the town the opportunity to clean up that site out there and then provide a sewer option so that that parcel can actually be developed into something that'll be viable and useful for the town. So that's one of the, 5 or 6 options that we're looking at in terms of a sewering option for the municipal complex. That's probably the most expensive alternative because it involves extending sewers all the way up Elm Street. So the only way that would go forward is if the grant monies come through, I assume. So today, actually, we were out at we met out there with Howard at the town center pump station, because one of the options we've talked about looking at is running installing a pump station. I mean, most of the options involve a pump station at the town complex site. And then instead of trying to get the force main all the way to the railroad bed or digging back into the intersection at West Main Street that we just got out of, is to run it underneath Route 123 and connect to one of the force mains. So we have the 6 and the 8-inch force main coming out of the town center pump station, connecting into one of those lines. So having the 2 pump stations pump into a common force main. So we just wanted to be able to run some analysis as to how that would impact the town center. We don't think it'll have significant impacts, those pumps, especially with the 2 force mains. So anyway, that's probably the option in the end that's going to be the least costly and the most attractive option to the town. So we want to make sure that it's perfectly acceptable and viable from this end. So we had, we talked a lot with Howard about it today, and his concerns. He feels pretty confident that it won't be an issue, but I don't think it will. So anyway, that's just kind of an update on that. So we're trying to finalize, hopefully this week, the draft report that kind of lays out the alternatives and the costs associated with them to then get it back to the town. On the Norton Public Schools, we're going to help the schools chase the potential I&I issue at the Yale School. So we are going to, they've actually entered into contract with us to go out there and do some some dye testing and some other needs, manhole inspections and whatnot on the property. There's been some concerns of extraneous flow, and you can see it when you track the pump run times coming out of the L school versus the water use data. We have already noticed, and I was talking to Howard about this today, that they replaced the boiler at the L school, and that was definitely running frequently and connected to the sewer. So that they were adding a lot of water to the sewer from that, and that has been taken out, and Howard said he's already noticed that the flows have come down significantly.
Good.
But we'll do some more analysis. There's one of the biggest things, Frank and I have been talking about is making sure that those roof drains aren't connected to the sewer and that they're properly installed. So we'll take a look at all of that stuff. And we're also going to help them, they're still looking to map out how to reconfigure their connection out there on West Main Street. So the way, just as a reminder, the way it works now is they have a small little ejector lift type station. I don't even know exactly what the type of pumps they are, but the high school pumps through the ball fields out back there and over to the Yale school.
Yeah.
And then the Yale school has a larger pump station, a Norman Rupp type station, that in turn takes all that flow from the high school plus the flow from the Yale school, and that pumped it back to the middle school. And what we did is we took right where that came out into West Main Street to head to the middle school, we tied that into the gravity sewer. So that's no longer connected to the treatment plant at the middle school. It connects to the gravity sewer and flows down to the town center pump station from there. They want to do some more, and rightfully so. We left another, so we have a stub by the Yale school. So the intent is to take the high school force main, and instead of running it all the way over to the Yale school, just have that pump up into the sewer right there. Take out all the piping, the two pipes going back and forth out of service between the schools, and then the pump station at the L school can just pump. We left a stub right at that driveway, so if you're out on West Main Street facing the school, the left entrance, there's a stub right there, and their pump station is right out back there. So tie it in there. And also they still run through their septic tanks, so we'd like to get there's no need for them to have to pump the solids out of their tanks, so they don't need to use those tanks anymore. They should be sending the solids right to this. So anyway, we're working with them to help them resolve both of those issues over the summer, now that the kids will be out of school as of beginning of next week. Not much to update on the Cobb Street pump station. We're in our holding pattern in terms of the long lead time on the generators, but we're in the queue, and we'll let you know if we hear any more. Still, hopefully end of the year, getting the new generator installed at Cobb Street. And we are looking, so we haven't gotten going on the phase 2 design yet. We need to, so we have a contract to start doing the wet well improvements. So we haven't gotten going on that yet, but we will. Met with Frank today, the 314 CMR 16 is public awareness of sewage pollution, this new policy. Basically, there's a report or a form that all communities are supposed to fill out by July 6th, just about that you have a public notification process in place, and you can do it. If you have an SSO, in addition to what you already have to do in terms of reporting it to DEP and obviously remedying it, which had to be done at Red Mill not too long ago. So we met with Frank today. We're going to help, and it's pretty basic. What they're looking for communities to just have on file. It's basically just a bunch of check boxes. You say yes. Do you have the ability to do this? Yes.
Like a sewer ERP.
Yes. It's just, and it's really just the ability to notify the public. Because you already have to respond to it now. But you also need to let people know what you're doing.
Sure.
So we met with Frank, and that should be moving forward. I think those are the big things that are happening right now. You mentioned Turtle Crossing earlier. I don't know if there's any. Let us know if there's any more we need to do to follow up with them. But they have our memo, and I couldn't be at the last meeting, so I don't know what their specific concerns are. But
Could we talk about Turtle Crossing for a minute? Because I'm a little confused about a few things.
yes,
It's a comprehensive permit, correct?
It was, but it expired in 2021.
So the permit has expired, but wouldn't that mean that they have to start over again?
I don't have that answer. So typically, they've asked for extensions, and for some reason, there was an oversight and they allowed it to lapse. So there've been multiple extensions that were given to this project since it started back in, I think, 2012. How it was allowed to lapse up until as of 2021, I really don't know. So I don't know the legalities behind if they can present what they had and automatically resume, if there's a window of opportunity there that allows them to get back to where they originally were, or if it's a brand new process.
So this is a 40B,
Yes.
is that correct?
Yeah,
So somebody said they're going before the planning board,
correct.
but the 40B process is before the zoning board.
Okay.
The zoning board of approval process, the planning board is out of it. It's one of the controversies of the whole thing. It's basically, you know, the beauty about 40B is they can violate zoning, period. And there's two ways of doing it, a friendly one or an unfriendly one. So I assume this was a friendly one back in the day. Is that correct?
Right.
So you weren't involved with it, right?
You're right.
But somehow those plans were approved, even though don't meet standards.
I don't know anything about, because we didn't look at these plans before, so I don't know who approved them. But
You know, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
assuming they got approved by somebody.
if they got
somehow
a permit, right.
They got a permit to build this thing, and I guess the good news is they didn't build it. In reality, because I don't think it would probably work very well.
Right.
It would have been myriad with problems. The fact that sewer lines is, and everything else is all screwed up. So the purpose of the meeting tomorrow is,
I was asked if we would attend the meeting because they were going there and they knew that there was issues that we had after a discussion with the peer review response and just the general comments that we had. Why it's going to planning, I don't have the answer for that. And
so there's a planning board meeting?
no, this is a meeting with the director of planning.
Oh, okay.
So it's going before
I see.
the director of planning.
With
Whether
Paul.
it's to, yeah, Paul DiGiuseppe.
Okay.
Whether it's to figure out what the next steps are or how they need to do this process.
So it's not an
It
open
is-
public
no.
meeting, this is a private
This
meeting?
is an internal meeting,
Okay.
in-house. I'm sure it's going to make its way to an actual planning board forum and zoning and all that again. I really don't know what the context of the meeting is, other than the fact that we're grateful that we were invited to it. And I think we'll learn as we go with that process, but it seems like you're very familiar with the way the projects work or are supposed to work with your years of experience.
So I was just confused. I didn't know it was with Paul. I thought it was a planning board.
Right.
So that's number one, because it shouldn't be with the planning board. So I'm not even sure why Paul's involved in retrospect. But that's okay. Maybe they're confused also, meaning the applicant.
Yeah.
It is strange that they had a permit and they let it go. As we all know in our world, hardest part of the whole world is getting the silly permit.
Yep.
Whatever the project is.
Yep.
We usually don't let those lapse for a lot of different reasons.
What happens when they lapse, though? Is there some sort of protocol you gotta go
Well,
through? Do you gotta start
my
over?
experience, you gotta start again.
Start all over
I mean, you
again?
have to delineate wetlands, you have to file a notice of intent, you have to go through the whole exercise, and one of my comments in this project is the wetlands permit not only was, has, been over, the wetlands are invalid. They have to be delineated all over again. Right? And normally with wetlands, they only usually expand, they usually don't contract, so, the impact of that's even greater. I would assume, that's why I'm trying to get an understanding about where this project is and how can it not almost start from the beginning.
That's what it sounds like that they're at, is to just
It very well could
start
be
right
that
from the
they're starting
beginning
over.
again.
Yeah.
But seems like they're wanting to not do that and just let it ride the way it was before.
The reason why I'm bringing it up is Weston Sampson did the review and they made recommendations to do X, Y, and Z. I think I gave a comment to everybody that I don't think, I think you were doing what you said, but I don't think we should be, they should be recommended to do X. They should be doing X and following our specifications, period.
Okay. No, it
Whether or not it's
makes perfect
public
We should
or
require it.
private, everybody in the town of Norton that's building a water and sewer, anything, should be following our standard, period. Because the first call that when it fails comes to guess who?
sense. No, you're
Whether or
right.
not it's public or private, right? So it should all be standardized, so that moving forward, we all, more or less, so instead of having a valve that potentially opens backwards, for instance, as you said earlier.
Exactly.
So, so I will attend the meeting by Zoom tomorrow.
Okay,
On
great.
the
Thank
construction
you.
site, but I have an opportunity that I can pull myself aside, and I'll see what happens. I mean, we're not obligating ourselves to do anything, because I don't think we're really there yet.
Right.
And then the comprehensive review, again, is usually orchestrated by the zoning board of appeals, where they come in and they basically tell you how they're not going to follow the rules and regulations, but they normally try to conform to the rules and regulations. But in our cases, if they're tying to a municipal system, I don't see how they cannot conform.
Right. Yeah, I think we just definitely, we need to be involved. We've had other issues with other applicants with 40Bs where basically the ZBA comes in and approves it, and we had little to no impact with it. So they'll follow our basic stuff, but I mean, there's issues with locations, there's issues with setbacks and separations, just stuff that we shouldn't have to deal with as a municipality just because it's a 40B. As you said, it should be built to our
Well,
standards.
they violate local regulations, but they have to follow state regulations. There's no exception to state regulations. For instance, 10-foot separation rule, it's a state standard, not a Norton standard. Okay. I'll attend and I'll take
Plus,
copious notes.
The 40B affords them to skirt
Zoning,
zoning rules, but it doesn't afford them to skirt water and sewer regulations at all, right?
No, there's been arguments in the past that it is all encompassing. And there were arguments in the past with other projects that they weren't required to have to pay fees and multiple different things of that nature just because it was in a 40B. And that's typically with an unfriendly 40B.
Right.
Usually with the friendlies, you can work out a deal where you give them a percentage decrease on how many affordable homes or apartments they're going to be. And, you know, we still get some money, we don't get the full amount, based on the criteria that they meet for whatever percentage they have. And that's the way, that's the only fair way to do it. You know, coming in as an aggressive builder, an unfriendly 40B, you know, they, as I've told, and I don't know the laws 100% about the 40B, but they do have the right, once they get the approval from the ZBA, that comprehensive permit, that they can basically kind of walk all over everybody,
Now,
which is wrong.
well,
That's
with
not
the,
right at all.
with the exception, again, they have to follow the state
State
rules.
code.
So, for instance, if Norton Conservation had their own bylaw for wetlands, a 40B does not have to pay attention to that.
Right.
But they still have to follow the state regulation having to do with wetland. That's for an example. So,
And that same rule would apply to any water and sewer infrastructure, as far as regulations of how
again,
that needs to be designed.
I believe it has to follow the standard of the industry.
Right,
It's
so
not
if-
like they can, put the a sewer line a foot below grade. It's
Yeah.
not underneath the plumbing code.
Yeah,
Again, it has nothing to do with Norton, it's just the plumbing code. It's a violation of that, and they can't violate the state plumbing code. For instance.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. It's a lot
So
more
I don't-
information than we've ever had.
So I don't know, we all don't know how it got to where it is. The question is what moving forward has to happen. And I guess I'll find out more tomorrow.
I think we all know. Moving forward, I'm sure this won't be the only 40B that's presented before the town, but I think we should have a good rapport with the ZBA and be involved with the meetings moving forward up until they're awarded.
sure.
They need to be aware of our concerns, not just monetary-wise, but obviously structure-wise and integrity installation. It's not all about money, it's about safety and the way things should be installed, not just
Absolutely.
because you have a special permit.
So in 40Bs that I've been involved with as an engineer, friendly or unfriendly, normally the application goes to the zoning board of appeals. There's obviously a public hearing. And normally, the zoning board of appeals invites all the departments to comment. And then they take that under consideration, and they decide how to move forward in that. Because the zoning board of appeals doesn't know anything about water and sewer, right? They don't know anything about wetlands, they don't know anything about, traffic and roads. I mean, they only know what they know, it's really just a zoning thing. And normally they're looking to increase the density, violate some setbacks. I mean, that's what a 40B, why they do such a thing. In order to do affordable housing. So.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks for doing that.
Thank you.
I think I'm all set with wastewater.
Hey, Tara, you're at bat.
All right, great, thank you. So, as Frank mentioned, we had the White Street bid opening this afternoon. The apparent low bidder seems to be Gravity, which we've had experience with on the last couple projects. And we'll go through the reference checks. We'll make our recommendation for award once we go through all the numbers and confirm and make sure they provide all the proper references and information. But for the most part, I mean, we didn't really have any issues with them the last two jobs either, and looking forward to the pricing that they gave us. Just as a quick reminder, so the original design was for about 550 feet, and when we actually, to go through White Street, we decided that the best route would actually be connect with Hastings, where that's a new connection, and get rid of some additional AC pipe and come down from Hastings all the way around to the connection to the existing 12-inch on the other side. So we're getting rid of that full stretch of AC. So it's about 975 feet. So it's a little bit longer. So good news is we appropriated enough to cover construction at least. And I think, I'm not sure where the design budget came out of, but we'll come forward with a construction services contract in the near future now that we know what the contractor is going to do. And if they're going to do it this year, we'll provide a contract this year. If it's going to be next year, we'll probably just hold off and provide a contract next year. But, so the whole hope is that they've got that much pipe and don't have to wait 9 months to a year for any of the parts. So, but it was a good number. It was pretty competitive, as Frank noted.
Who was
so.
the second bidder?
Olivera, and they were $160 higher out of the 320,000. So pretty close, actually.
Shopping in their temples.
The low four were actually pretty close. The fifth one was pretty high up there, but for the most part, everybody was within like 20,000 or so. So pretty good smattering of costs there. So getting into a bunch of the other stuff that Frank's already talked about too, and just a little bit additional information on our end. So we did also attend the Concom meeting on the water side last night for the well 4 work. Everything was approved, no issues. They had no major questions or concerns. The only issue was the fact that DEP's behind on their file number issuances. So for our NOI versus an RDA, we need to go for that. And instead of the normal 1 to 2 weeks, it's kind of being 3 to 4 weeks or so. So the hope is that by the end of this week or maybe next week we'll get that. Concom indicated that they'll draft the order of conditions and just it'll be contingent on that file number. So, and also indicated at the meeting that likely will not have to attend a second meeting, which is great. So the last project, it was pretty much well 4 is very similar to wells 5 and 6. So we had it already in front of them about a year or so ago, and they're very aware of what the work is involved, and it's very minor impacts too. And as far as permanent impacts, it's the vault hatch is 2 foot by 2 foot above grade, and that's about pretty much it in the well itself, which is a 36-inch diameter. So everything else is pretty much buried, backfilled, and it's all previously disturbed area. So pretty straightforward. So we're glad to hear that went smoothly. I do have a contract from Kevin McKinnon from my office. He went through with his numbers. He contacted Frank Sullivan, who's our driller, to get the next phases for wells, the well 4 replacement job moving forward. As you're aware, the Auchincloss funding is imminent to reimburse for all of this, which is great. We just don't know exactly when that's going to hit, but at the very least, we want to continue moving forward with replacement of well 4. Some monies have already been appropriated to cover anyway, just in case it didn't come through. So our next steps are to basically drill the well, do the full production well, get the full pumping test complete, and design our vault and our equipment in connection to the existing well 4 station. So I have a contract here for review. You guys can take a look at it and then sign it at this meeting, or certainly feel free to sign it at the next meeting. I can also send you guys a PDF, so just didn't get a chance to get them out today. I was kind of running all over the state. So this is just an amendment number 1 to the original contract. And I didn't even get stickers, sorry.
I like stickers.
Let's see, pass that. There's 4 copies, so I can send more. If you guys want to have any questions on that, but, the costs in there, we had originally provided a summary memo last year around this time, for a total cost of $275,000 for phases 3 and 4. We're about a year ahead of the curve right now, so we did anticipate it's gonna be about $20,000 more. Our hope is that actually the drilling goes well, we'll actually come in under budget and we won't be delayed on anything, but as we found with 5 and 6, we took a lot longer to get those drilled. So just our driller on site and also our labor to be kind of overseeing the construction process was a little bit more. So we built in some contingency, but the hope is that we'll come in and be able to just carry over some of that towards the construction services if needed. But we just didn't want to come back for more money, so learned from it. So feel free to take a look at that and ask any questions, and if there's any hydrogeo questions on the first couple pages are all related to their scope. I can answer most of them at this point after a couple well-replaced jobs, but Kevin is our PhD expert on that stuff, so.
Oh, there's not much copies.
I've done a couple of wells if you have any questions.
Perfect. Replacements are pretty good. We got some good water quality there, so. And then we got the new treatment plant, which is the benefit too. And while you're just kind of reviewing that, I did have just kind of a question. We got a call today from Dankers, who is doing the wells 5 and 6 replacement. I know last meeting we approved pay estimate number 2. They said they haven't been paid for pay estimate number 1 yet, which was an April processing. And I just don't know if it's possible that Town Hall has that and they're holding off to wait for, or is it in this pile?
It's in that file.
So 1 and 2 are in here? Okay, all right.
It was being held off on hoping there would be money
Yep.
from the congressman already, and it would keep the books clean. It is in tonight's billing cycle to be signed, but would not be put into the pay schedule until after July 1, next fiscal year.
Okay.
Town has already started to work cleaning up the budgets. Coming to the end of June is the end of the fiscal year. They would prefer if it can sit till after July 1, which would be FY '23.
And both pay estimates 1 and 2 could be processed at the same time, right after July 1? Okay.
Yeah,
They
so
okay,
that,
they okay with that?
they were okay with that. The money is gonna come
Well,
out
the
of.
town is, I'm sure.
Right,
But
I don't know
if
about
Dankers is.
Dankers.
No, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Dankers is what I was talking about.
I mean, so they called and they left it, they just asked where their payment was, so.
Yeah, we had discussions with the town manager and the town accountant about holding off on payment, which is what was requested when the original allocation of congressman money was supposed to be in at the beginning of June. Since we have not seen that yet, we've pushed again to have it approved with existing funds that are in place for wells 5 and 6, and all that does is change the books.
Right.
The money from the congressman would be reimbursed to that existing account, making it whole again. Creates a lot more work for the town hall side of it, which I can understand why they're hoping to hold off, but also puts us in a bind with making sure that the payments are done in a timely manner.
Technically, they haven't provided a schedule yet, and technically the specs say you must provide a schedule before, but they were just going for bonds and insurance in that first one, and the second one was ordering parts, which we all know are taking forever, so. I'll bring it up and I'll let them know, just as a heads up, but the sooner the better. Obviously, any contractor is gonna anticipate being paid within a reasonable amount of time, so. Well, I guess along that note, that's good that we didn't provide you with our contract, because we wouldn't have gotten paid anyway, so. I do also have contracts for 5 and 6 for construction services to oversee. And that number's been set for several months now. We provided that for fiscal budgeting before the town meeting, and I think it was might have been last December, but it's been a while since we had that bid opening, so. I also have 4 copies of amendment number 3 to the contract for wells 5 and 6 for review. But before I pass this down, I'll ask if anybody has any questions on the well 4.
You take checks? Venmo?
Venmo.
Venmo is pretty popular these
Steve
days.
didn't remember his glasses, so this could take a while.
No, they? Oh, I know. They're in my truck too.
And by all means, I mean, it's up to you. If we could pause and take a look at that and, end the meeting. If you want to sign it or vote on it, we can totally wait.
Are we voting on these tonight?
It's up to you.
You can.
The actual contract
we're all in
language
agreement.
is pretty much
We can
identical to the
close it
last,
up.
well, 5 and 6, except instead of 2 wells, we have 1 well. So, and the numbers were, other than the 20,000 I mentioned, the numbers were pretty much part of the memo that we submitted last July.
So this is an amendment to the agreement already, that we already voted on?
We had a well 4 original contract for $60,000 to conduct the initial test well drilling and complete the Conservation Commission permitting and submit our test well drilling information to the state for review and approval so that we could do this next phase, which is the actual production well installation.
Okay, and so this amendment is for, is this right, 355, 600? On the,
I gave you all my
Third page.
copies, Charlotte. Should be six,
Yeah.
yes. Thanks.
okay,
355, 600 is the total, so that includes the current work plus the 60,000 originally that we've already been paid for. Well, approved. for.
I'm just wondering if I have to say the amount in this, or are we just approving the amendment? Motion.
In the past, we've said.
We said the
Let's say for a total
We said
amount.
both.
Yeah, amendment number 1 in the total of, yeah. So basically, we take the paragraph from the original contract, delete that, and insert this new paragraph. So this is the new amended contract.
Okay, then, having said that, I move to approve amendment number 1 to the agreement for engineering services between Norton, Town of Norton and Western and Sampson engineers for the well 4 replacement projects to make the total amount $355,600.
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Alright, so I'll let Frank Sullivan know he can start, and he won't invoice us for a while. And obviously
we sign
we'll be waiting
all
for
of these,
July
right?
1.
All 4?
Yes. Frank, so you talked about 5 and 6 with Town Hall. Are they, we've moved some funding around and eliminated it. We can start moving forward.
I gotta sign 2 of them.
I'll verify all
About
the
4 as well?
numbers with
They're not
James.
waiting for Auchincloss funding for that.
I honestly would have to double check with them. They've gone
That's
back and
4,
forth on a
right?
few
There was
things.
another one, yeah.
There
I
was
think I only did 1.
issues
I think I
with
did 1 more.
ARPA and timing and stuff on
Steve's
that.
got
So
this
that
one.
we
This one goes to
can
you.
see what's clear and what's not.
This one
We've
goes
held
to
up
you.
on all the
Yes.
ARPA contracts just because
That's all.
it seems like that's gonna take a while to kind of come
I
through.
think that might take longer than the congressman.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely a new avenue that we're going down, and they're trying to figure out accounts and when they're gonna see monies come into it. They
Steve,
don't
could you
mind
send me
deficit spending, they
your
don't
comments
limit it,
on Turtle
but they
Crossing
have always been very cautious.
tomorrow?
Yeah.
Or tonight, or whatever?
Yeah, and
So that way, because I have to run to another meeting,
I
and I'm
don't-
not gonna have time to,
I don't think
I
it's
have
gonna
my
matter
drawing,
one way or
so I
another.
don't have
That-
to drawing.
Yeah, I'll
Those projects are
resend the
several
the comment
miles,
memo.
so that'll be significant enough that it's gonna need to be ordered and materials for that, so.
Thanks again, Steve.
All right, so then this is amendment number 3.
no, let me stick with that. Well, only to make it kosher, that's all.
Yeah.
And that's just adding roughly 52,000 to the contract for construction services, including work we've already kind of started on and moving forward and through hopefully the end of the year, and we'll have both of the wells up and running, and we'll just need to see that contract schedule from the contractor for Dankers, but they've started to submit shop drawings. We've approved a bunch of them a couple months ago, and the order process has gone through. And then I'll make a comment, since this other one is about the water quality that you were talking about. So, so with the THM exceedances, with the fact that when we place the plant online, the intent, we had written a letter to DEP prior to the plant going online indicating that while the original goal from the DeFray and Henry report from the 80s indicated that a pH of 8 would be ideal, we have a primary source now with full treatment, and the goal, we were recommending to lower the pH and make some adjustments there. So we're gonna kind of lump this all together. We've talked a little bit with DEP. They are requiring the optimum water quality parameters to be checked out. We're gonna link that with a request to make some system changes anyway, but also to discuss the pH and lower that. at the
Well,
same time.
the major reason why they wanted us to up the pH is the copper and leads. Now, copper and leads have been exemplary, haven't they been?
Well, a lot's changed since the 80s, yeah.
No, I understand that,
And
but
like
I'm
that's-
talking
yeah.
about, because I remember them sending us a letter that we've gotta,
Yeah,
well, that we've gotta comply with that
right.
water, you know, back whatever it was. Would you say in the 80s, no? That
It
that
was,
came
it
down?
was 80s. I mean,
Yeah, so our 21st century, 2016 or so document, or 2017, I think it was. They were just saying, no, we want to go back to the one from the 80s. And they're like, well, okay, fine. We'll run the plant for a year or two, collect data, and we've got a bunch of, so what we've been doing under the general services agreement the last several months is monitoring. Frank's team has already been out starting, I think, January or so is Q3 for you guys. So Q3, Q4, we've gotten data and we're taking a look at all that, including the PHM information. And then we're basically just need to kind of get into Q1, which is July, and that first quarter we'll have enough data that we can kind of put together our optimum water quality. DEP did in that email also recommend the TOC, totally, if you have historical data, that's kind of part of this whole analysis here. But the big thing is responding by the end of this month to the original NON that occurred back, I think it was issued in December or so, which it took a month or so to get the actual sample levels and get everything started to testing. So we've got enough information now that we've had a rough game plan. But the fundamental issue is really still to kind of take a next step, and DEP wants to know what the plan is. So we're going to put a plan together. And what I would recommend, and what we've done in the past, is anything under $50,000 we've had that you can authorize Frank to negotiate with us directly if you want us to change the scope. So right now we're at 42.
Tara,
You want to talk about that one first?
yeah,
Yep.
because Steve's gotta go. Do we have any questions on this, and do we need to vote on this, like the last one?
Yes.
Do we need to vote on this as well?
I'm good with it.
Yeah, I'm ready if there's any
Questions,
questions.
I don't, no?
Okay, I would like to move to approve amendment number 3 for the engineering services agreement between the town of Norton and Weston and Sampson Engineers for well 5 and 6 replacement projects to bring the total up to $809,400.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We could have, let me have one sign now, you can leave. All right, thanks.
Okay, the speeding ticket now.
Thanks, Tara, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So I'll just ask if there'd just be a motion for this then, that you'll authorize Frank to sign our scope after we negotiate the scope, but not to exceed $50,000. So right now we're at $42,500. And it includes the UDF, which Frank may want to delete from this too, so.
Do you want me to be at that motion? Or what you just said? Authorize Frank to sign up to a $50,000 change order?
We can do that. Can I read
So
that
it's,
though?
yep, this is the title of it right there, yep. Wow, this is the fastest I've talked in a while here.
I should go to more meetings sooner. You know.
So this is to authorize change orders.
It's actually to authorize
Frank.
Frank to sign a new scope of services for, the title is in bold.
Okay. I move to allow Superintendent Frank Fournier to sign change order authorizations for Mass DEP compliance response reports and UDF update.
And a
Yeah,
maximum.
in the amount not exceeding $50,000. Is that right?
Yeah, for Weston Sampson's contract?
Weston
Or-
Sampson's contract
Right.
with,
Was
For
that in
Weston
your
and
motion?
Sampson's contracts
Okay.
regarding Mass DEP compliance
Okay.
response reports and UDF update.
All right, I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Do we sign this or?
no, that's for
That's
Frank to
for
look
Frank.
at, because
Okay.
he's been
That's the
communicating with
amendment.
DEP today, and I just wanna make sure.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks for
Sorry, I have
sticking
to go.
around.
I'll try not to have these conflicts again.
Appreciate it, no big deal,
You're good.
thank you.
Thanks.
Good night, Steve.
I'll go first next time.
Tara, you good, or you?
I got a few other things. So just to go back to that document though, for Frank, our whole process here is to really just take a look at everything. We've got a lot of data now, and we just want to kind of put it together and present it to DEP and talk a little bit about the overall water quality and get to a point where we also want to take a look at the flushing. I believe last time we kind of talked a little bit about flushing. The last several years, obviously, it's been a modified unidirectional flushing program based on a lot of different factors. So where the water's coming from and also how much water is available. So in conjunction with a future storage tank study, I mean, we've got a lot of stuff in play here to kind of take a look at overall storage, as well as taking a look at the UDF and making sure that we can make, I mean, they've been out there, they know, I'm sure you guys have edits, you know, we can make some modifications to what's actually known out there. And just take a wholesale look at it and really get to the bottom of this and DEP kind of wants to know, like, you know, next steps, like what's the cost involved, what are your implementation plan and stuff like that, which we really need to analyze the data and talk a little bit about that. I'm not going to the far end of the realms here. I think we can probably take a little bit of a look at the UDF and talking a little bit more about the pH adjustment and trying to reduce a little bit of chlorine here and there and taking a look at the tank operations too and potentially, yes, aeration or mixing, fine, but there's some things that we just want to take a look at first. So I just want to give Frank's talked to DEP directly, and obviously the last several years we've kind of been involved with all this too. But we'll move from there, and then kind of take another step to another topic. Let's see. So we had the Water Management Act permit order to complete. That was from 2019. That actually was in the public comment period. We have only 2 comments, but they were little interesting comments. So Mass DEP provided us with a summary of the comments that came back in. They were from the Mass Rivers Alliance and Taunton Watershed Alliance. The first comment was based on, can we put well 2 online again? And that's in a less stressed basin, so it's all comes back to that original thought process. And when we met with DEP a couple of years back, we talked about the fact that we have a brand new treatment plant. Yes, it's in a different basin, but those 4, 5, and 6 wells are going to that treatment plant, and that is the primary focus. Otherwise, you're going to need to put treatment plants at the other wells. So
If you pull into well 1 far to the left.
it's right near it, so I don't even think it's far enough away from well 1, but I'm not sure about that.
Is it
We'd
in
have
the
to take a look.
400-foot buffer of 1?
It might be.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's further than 400?
It's very close. I think it might be. The problem is the way it was decommissioned. It was done inaccurately, so it would have to be going after as a brand new source.
Yeah, it's been inactive since the early
Why,
80s.
wow.
we've talked about this, but is it iron manganese, is that why it was taken off?
That is the assumption, but I've never found any documentation to prove otherwise. So there had to be a reason why they abandoned that and went to the existing location of well 1, which is much further away than a relocation would have been. So there has to be a good reason why.
Is the building still there?
Oh, there's no building. There's
There's
just
nothing
the
there?
pipe.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's probably a combination of the, screen's probably done. It needed a full
Oh, it's full,
replacement.
yeah, brand new, you
source,
need
so
brand new, yeah.
Unfortunately, and the water quality, it's not the best anyway, so and
No.
it's possible that you could find something, but the long and short of it is, you guys have spent millions of dollars to build a treatment plant.
Yeah.
Putting that active online and having bad water quality coming out of it without another treatment plant that would treat those, so let's add, what, 10 million
What
for
does
that,
it
so.
yield? Would it be worth it to get 1 and 2 online with a smaller treatment
We'd
plant?
have to go through the full process of pumping tests and.
Yep,
and
no, I
putting it in.
understand.
So, I don't know what the original yield was for that, but we were talking about
No, 1's only 150 or something like that.
200 gallons a
Yeah,
minute.
it's permitted, I think, for 2, and we don't pull that out of it now. The other concerns are with the changes that we've seen with the aquifer recharge from the MFN. When you go to well number 2, you're much closer than you are with the existing well 1.
Mhm.
And any increase in flow rate, if it was running both wells simultaneously or putting in one larger well, is gonna change the hydrological flow under the ponds, and you're gonna lose your filtration that you typically have now at the lower flow rate. So potentially you could be short-circuiting the recharge water to that well, which has a number of problems in itself, not just the thought of what is going from A to B. Treatment process obviously is supposed to be perfect, but if for some reason that fails and the discharge water isn't exactly perfect,
So their concern is that we're gonna activate that again?
No, they want it activated because it's in a less stressed basin, so that you can not use wells 4, 5,
I
and 6 as
understand.
much.
Okay, I got
So
you.
that would be the trade-off, which
I
we
got
already answered the reason why well 1 isn't pumping more, to DEP at least, because that was one of their questions in the OTC. And that, they understood why. There's a new treatment plant, there's no treatment there, the water quality isn't really as good, and we definitely don't want to be pumping more because the water quality will go down. So putting a secondary well over there and pumping more, and also looking again at the zone 2, which the MFN was built well after well 2 was decommissioned. So that would need to all be reviewed again, and how much that would be impacted. And the whole goal here is, with the whole original plan, was to reduce the amount of pumping from your other wells that are not going to the
So
treatment
is it even worth spending any money on?
I think we have enough information to just kind of be a very relatively simplistic answer back that this would cost millions of dollars, not only to do the first step and just check to see if the well will be, but
Infrastructure stuff.
the infrastructure and
Sure.
and putting it all online and getting it. So what we just spent for, could be up to $750 to $1 million just to kind of get a new well, but the permitting for a new source takes a lot longer and it's much more involved with the replacement. So it's going to take time and effort, and then on top of that, when you're going to spend that much, you do, why would you want to be putting that into the system?
How physically far away is well 1 from the treatment plant?
And we looked at doing a cross-country line.
That's what I'm wondering, if
Fran,
that's even a possibility.
we looked, and there was a funky easement off of Pine Street that may have been a viable, but it just didn't make sense to lay that far of a dedicated line. Just didn't make sense.
It's a few
financially.
miles.
Yeah,
So that would even cost more than what we were just talking about of trying to get well 2 up. That would even.
but
be
is
more.
it worth it for 150 gallons a minute?
Right,
I mean,
yeah,
or-
it's a lot.
The amount of
200.
flow that they're
Yeah.
talking about is negligible in the fact that you have a treatment plant that's definitely not at all maxed out. When you have your next couple, wells back up line, they're not even pumping what they're normally pumping anyway. So, it's certainly not a cost-effective option, but certainly for the river, watershed business.
Yeah, we
that's-
definitely looked at that
That's what they
before
want
they
to know.
built
They
the
just
plant.
want to know what it is, and
Yeah.
I mean, oddly.
if they want to donate 10 million, I mean, let's go for it.
The other thing that you run into is actually, it's called an interbasin transfer, and that
Oh, yeah.
that in itself
That is an
is.
act of Congress.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
because it's on a different
Yeah,
end, right?
that was been very
So they
enjoyable.
would- They would frown upon that anyway, even if we did
Yeah,
want
we had to do that.
spend the money
There
to
is
do
a
it.
lot of permitting involved.
Yeah, that's
There's just multiple
burdensome.
layers of difficulty that come along with doing anything with that location, unfortunately, other than basically spending $15 million and putting a treatment plant there, and either doing multiple satellite wells or doing one large
Yeah.
well. It's just not in the cards right now, but we
We
don't
already
want to
did
do away with
We
that.
already did some pump testing over there, correct, last year?
Just
Well,
recently.
Two
Well
months
one,
ago?
yep,
Yeah,
and
one.
that didn't really prove to be
Yeah.
very viable,
Yeah, you're
so,
saying that.
well one isn't really, I mean, it can be done, it just would require treatment if you really wanted
Right.
to go that route, and, building a new well, it's not gonna improve your water quality. Then the yield, it's not giving you any more, you're only permitted for a certain amount anyway, so,
So, I mean, aren't there like smaller systems that you could put in a smaller output well? Something, I mean, I'm just spitballing now, because I've never seen one or heard of one, I'm just curious.
I mean,
I've seen what we have now, the plant, it's one that's, revolutionary, but do they have like a smaller satellite, something?
you could do a pitless adapter and just kind of do a few 100 feet. I mean, it's probably over 400. Let's hope it's not in the same radius as the existing one, but and bring it over to well one in that building and treat both of them from that location. Do some modifications. It's not the biggest building over there, but it's not a viable option. That's just kind of
Yeah.
the question came in, and I get it in DEP when we explained it to them why we were not pumping more out of well one. Well, it's the same area, why would we pump more out of a well that's not even there?
Right.
And we'd have to
Right.
fully new source it, approve it, and then go
I get that,
route.
I'm just wanna exercise every
Yep.
option that we have to make that a better well for customers, so that's all.
Yeah. There's, unfortunately, I think that the solution is we get 4, 5, and 6 up and running at the
Yeah.
700 to 800 gallons a minute that they're permitted for, and then you stop
Shut it
using
off.
your other, and they're only for emergency services
Emergency,
at that
right.
point. And that's the whole goal
And then
anyway.
that's the goal, and we talked about that, I know that's the goal,
Makes sense
right,
anyway,
yeah.
so.
But
Okay.
yeah, I think we talked about small packaged options for treatment, and I mean, we could run a full scale pilot there for forever and have a little trailer there, but.
I'm not gonna sign another one of those 4-page things, $355,000.
The other thing that you run into.
I mean, there's options. It's just all about money and
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
it's
we
just, it's
understand,
cost,
yeah.
and that's the tough
Yeah,
part, is it's
yeah.
just not for the actual yield and the benefits, it's just,
Right.
it's not there. There was a second question too, but if we wanna continue chatting on that.
That's not it?
No. The other question was, can you provide an update on the status and plans for the MFN to expand? And that, we're just,
Expand the MFN?
yeah, their groundwater discharge permit and expanding the amount of,
Is there any-
we're just gonna pose that to have them it's not even in the same sub-basin, so you just have to respond to the questions that come in.
Gotcha.
And they could be anything from, can I still walk down that area? To, why
I
don't you
mean,
put a well?
he's still got PFAS to contend with. I mean, how much land do they have over there? And he's gonna have to,
The only way that would make any sense would be to pump all of that recharge back to the head of the Canoe River and have it essentially feed Foxborough,
Right.
Mansfield, and Norton.
Yeah, Norton is 1/3 of the group here.
Right.
It's not,
It
so that's
doesn't-
it's really not your jurisdiction, the water sewer department. It really is the MFN, and there's a representative that, you know, we can just reach out to Diane and just check in. That's what Frank and I talked about doing. But, I mean, what are the plans? Well, I don't know.
We
Predict the
don't have
future.
any.
Yeah.
It's not on us.
So we'll reach out and we'll provide a draft and, you know, shoot it over. But if you do recall back in 2018 when I said this could take a few years, and you're like, what? It should take like 6 months, and yeah.
A few years and 6 months.
We have the public comment in. This is the last thing, so we just answer that, and hopefully we're on the home stretch. The comments were, I mean, you know, they're reasonable comments in a sense. I mean, fine, we can provide these easy enough, and it wasn't anything like, you know, shut this project down. You're not asking to withdraw more. You're within your total volume that you've been permitted for, so there's no real concerns. It is a lot of hurdles to get through the permitting process.
okay.
And guess what? I think it's up and you know, some 20-year permit, and we're already 6 years, 7 years in, so.
We'll be here.
I'll still be here.
13 more years, we'll still be here.
We'll be there.
All right, so that was that one, and I think I might be done. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Yep. So any other questions?
Okay.
Thank you, Tara.
Sure.
All right, we have any other
I do.
questions, comments? I know you got some more stuff too, yep. Good.
So, Mr. Bernstein graciously will attend that meeting tomorrow. There was another meeting that I had sent out to you guys. I believe it's on the 21st.
Yeah, for the Pine Street thing.
So Pine Street builder put on some type of meeting with the residents to talk about homes being built at the Belfour Farm
Yeah.
development. When this first started, I had multiple calls come into the office asking if we knew about it, how are we going to allow it, and there was some pretty irate residents, I guess.
I read some of the comments.
Hoping that it would stay as open space or a farm or
Yep.
whatever, but
I get
basically
it.
not have homes put in their backyard
Sure.
after a number of years. A few of the people said basically that they would do whatever they could to make it difficult to build there, whatever it takes, which, you know, if I was somebody who anticipated looking at something a certain way for a number of years, I'd probably be upset as well. It seems like the meeting focused on water quality as the reason why they shouldn't be allowed to build there. I've spoken with a person in email, I don't know who they are, where they live, if she's part of the Pine Street people who are against or for this, but it was recommended that we possibly attend the next meeting to discuss questions that a few of the people had about water quality, about what stresses that would cause in that area, and I've had conversations with her in email, explained a few different things. And the way we look at it, obviously it would be a benefit to that area. We have reason to believe that the reason we see water quality issues there is because the water becomes stagnant. So it gets stuck on Pine Street and doesn't move rapidly through to another area as many of our other water mains do. And the longer it sits, you have a chance for particles to settle out. Even if you can't physically see them, they eventually will drop out. And then anytime there is a minute change in water flow, even if it's not right there, it's enough just to stir it up. And we still go out on a random basis with dirty water calls, we'll flush. A lot of times the water is not dirty. It takes just to clean up the hydrant lateral, which is 6 or 8 feet of pipe, and it's clear. And then there's other times that we're stuck out there for 15, 20 minutes, but the water eventually clears. So that indicates to us that the water doesn't move very often. There's a few different ways operational that you can change that. You could throttle a valve, which obviously isn't the best option. We can't do a bleeder because they're not allowed, which would be basically a continuous waste of water. Or the other thing would be to look at options, and this basically fell on our lap. By having additional homes there, you're gonna have increased use, you're gonna have increased water flow on the supply main, because the additional people are gonna be using water on a regular basis, so in theory, without holding me to it,
It'll turn it over a little more.
It's gonna
hopefully.
turn-
That makes sense to me. In fact, look at the map, I can't picture exactly where this is, but if they build all these homes, does that put us anywhere close so we can go through there and loop back to another street and?
Well,
there's,
he'd probably, we'd have him loop
it's
it
gonna
anyways.
loop back to Pine Street. There is no option to loop out to another street,
Okay,
just based on the limitations that they have. But additional homes typically improve water quality in any area, whether it's a home or a commercial business or anything like that. The additional use changes the direction of flow, so obviously that area is fed more, especially during peak demand time. And you typically get better water quality. I've never seen developments go in that has impacted it in a negative way. We require a loop system for a
That makes
reason,
sense.
that's one of them. So I don't see, other than having a target, that the water is horrible, you shouldn't build here. I don't see the negative parts to it, but I'm sure not living there, everybody's gonna look at things differently. So Pine Street is one of our, for lack of better words, problem areas. It's a challenge to keep that road clean at all different times of the year. Right now, when we have a call, we go down, we basically flush the water to waste. All we're doing is moving the water, where these additional homes would do that for us.
Yeah.
And because it's spaced out between multiple homes, you're not gonna see one particular home, have black water and brown water. The use is gonna be continuous.
is there a total number of homes that we know of that they want to
I
put in?
believe there's 40 homes in
40?
total
Yeah.
that are gonna go in. Rather substantial.
That sounds like a lot more than is even on that area
I
of the road.
think it is, yes.
And I think the biggest question, I know that I have is with our, well, not a question, but with our upgrading of our wells now, 4, 5, and 6, capacity-wise, we're not, it's not gonna stress us, our system,
No.
with the added, pump capacity that we're getting, so that's not gonna be a factor.
No, and as these new wells go online, obviously, we're in a stall process now waiting for supplies.
Right,
We're gonna limit the amount of use that we have at our unfiltered well, which is well 1, and well 3, which is on the opposite side of town. So, it will have to remain as an active source, so it will be used an hour or 2 a day. Extremely, minute compared to what we had to
Sure.
use in the past.
Yeah.
But we can't do away with that source, obviously. That's something that DEP and, our permits would be foolish to let them expire, as we've mentioned earlier.
No, we don't, no.
But I can't see any negative impacts that, the water is gonna cause these builders not to want to build there. But either way, we've been asked to attend the meeting to answer some questions.
Can we
About
have to just one person go, or is this something that we can just
That I
attend?
don't know. I'm gonna find out,
We don't get ourselves in any
if
trouble.
if we have to post as a meeting, or if it is just gonna be one representative.
Okay.
this is the planning board, right?
No, this is the one on the 21st. This is that different meeting.
But what's the board that we're meeting with? That would potentially
I
be
don't
a
think
joint
it is a
meeting
board.
with?
I think it's just a group of.
Oh, okay,
together.
okay,
From
okay.
the builder had this meeting, an open forum meeting, I think it might have been at the library or something, past Saturday.
So if we go as a quorum and have to post, then it becomes a water sewer meeting,
Yeah,
basically?
then we'd have to open up the meeting, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
No big deal.
So I'll find out a little bit more information about it, where if they want to hold it, if they want it to be in person, Zoom, whatever,
Okay.
and we'll go from there. Just want to pass that along.
Where's it gonna be?
Don't know yet.
We don't know any of that stuff. Okay, all right.
Wait and see.
Anything else?
Nothing else that's really great.
Well, that was fun. I got a question. Are they changing water services over on East Main Street?
Yes, they are.
They're causing a little disturbance, so they're not notifying people?
It has caused one disturbance at one particular home.
Yep,
In that area, as some of the oldest sections of town,
Yeah.
most of the services are black iron. So they are, I should say, they are supposed to notify the resident while they're there working that there's gonna be a period of downtime while they transition the new service
Okay.
and connect it to their existing. We did respond to one complaint out there about particles in the water after it was connected.
yep.
And I believe that has since cleared up. I think we threw a spacer bar in there to remedy that. It's gonna be something we're gonna see.
Is there anything we can do, so maybe put a post or something that, so people don't ruin their clothes or anything like that? I mean, because it doesn't seem like that people are getting notified. And it's not, I know it's not on us, but I mean, maybe we should be a little more proactive and put something out, whether it be on town, you know, on the website, or just something, a little blurb saying, just be wary, you know, check your water before you wash
Maybe
your
John
watch or
can put
something
something on
like
the
that.
Facebook page or
Yeah.
whatever that Facebook page is.
Yeah, I'm sure we can get some notifications out. There was discussion about similar situations in the past where a lot of the town residents don't realize that they actually own what we call the homeowner portion
Yep.
of their water service, which is from the curb stop, which is typically at the property line, to their house. You know, the water department owns the main and the service up to that shutoff. But, you know, when we go by and we do a water improvement project, we replace the services up to that point, typically the company that's out there doing the work would give us notification of what they found, what they're connecting to, whether it be iron pipe, galvy pipe, copper pipe, you know, plastic, and what the condition of it was. With Mass DOT, we don't have a good rapport with their inspector. They're not on every job, but they are overseeing the project. So the way we found out about that one complaint was by the call. We figured out, talking to these people, that, you know, you have particles, obviously it's an iron pipe service. Went back, did a little homework, looked at the house, and it was from, you know, late 1800s. So we obviously already know what type of service is going to be there, but we don't know the condition of it. We've seen some iron pipe in town that looks as good as the day it was put in. And then we've seen it on the far extreme where, you know, it's a 1-inch service, but it's this big around with crust
Yeah.
Right.
built up, which is more common than seeing a good one. You know, anytime you do any type of work, even around that, even construction in the street with paving and a vibratory roller, you know, you have the potential to break stuff loose on that pipe, and it can create problems. So homeowners need to also be aware that it's also time, if we're replacing our side, they really should be thinking about replacing theirs if they don't know the history of it. But that's also a very tough sell.
Yeah.
Especially with the way the market is now
Yes.
and everything
It's a lot of
going on. You know, obviously, we can't stop projects like Mass DOT from coming in and doing the infrastructure improvements, but we also can't control what they connect to.
Have you heard what their paving schedule's gonna be yet?
I have heard nothing about
I know
it.
they did some temp paving
Okay.
over there, just,
They still have lateral connections and stuff.
Oh, they do?
So
Yeah.
it'll be a while.
okay.
Last week, I believe, while I was out, they put in the insertion valve on that 16-inch main.
Oh, good.
So that was installed. And, yeah, we don't have much contact with them. They were sporadic at best when they came back. So I don't know if they have their full crew or when they're really gonna start ramping up. But
Okay.
letters have been sent from higher officials requesting them to be back out there because of the lengthy delay that they had
Sure.
from the normal stock period. So hopefully we'll see that start picking up and
All right.
move forward.
Have we heard anything, speaking of paving East Main Street, from the Island Brook people? Any
I
updates
have
on that?
not heard anything from Island
I'm
Brook.
still trying to figure it out.
Well,
Okay.
no other questions or comments? Jim?
Next meetings?
Next meetings? I do have a problem with the next Tuesday. Can we do the Wednesday, the 29th? Would that be all right?
I'll see why not.
I think, was it the 28th? That,
It was, I think,
would have been
28th,
Tuesday,
Yeah, it's gonna be 14 days from now, so Wednesday the 29th.
If that works, I would,
Works for me.
okay.
That's Steve Bernstein, but that'll probably be okay too.
All right.
Okay, we're good?
Yep,
Okay, I move to adjourn this evening's meeting.
I second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.